Unity requires reciprocity. It requires both parties to take risks. It requires both parties to stand together when the consequences become dangerous. But when some Mexican-American leaders were offered an alliance with the Black civil rights organizations, they said, no, let that N-word fight his own battle, okay? I need y'all to understand that. Meanwhile, you have Black leaders like Medgar Evers shot in the back in his Jackson, Mississippi home in the driveway on June 12, 1963. You got Malcolm X, who was assassinated on February 21st, 1965. Martin Luther King Jr., he was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel on April 4th, 1968. Okay, you have, I mean, think about it. Fred Hampton, December 4th, 1969. He was 21 years old, pre-dawn raid in Chicago. You understand what I'm saying? This is what we were doing. UEP Newton, Bobby Seale, Eldridge Cleaver. You had Ashada Shakur, escaped prison in 1979. You understand what I'm saying? And now compare that to what Felix Terina and Lulac were doing. All right? Think about that. You see? They were trying to become white, literally, on paper. Well, so I just want you to think about that. We aren't Negroes. Treat us white. That was basically what they were saying. Think about that, man. So how you come together with folk like that, man? Shout out to Blue Baggins. And then here's another thing. And to understand this complicated historical relationship between Mexican-American civil rights organizations and Black Americans, or what I say foundational Black American civil rights, and the legal category of whiteness, we need to examine an actual federal case. It's called Mendez versus Westminster School District of Orange County. Okay, we're gonna learn something. Just hang with me. I'm gonna try to break this down. It's complicated stuff, but I know you all can understand that because this is important. This is what these folk fought for. They spent thousands and thousands of dollars fighting to win this case. See, this wasn't just a social media argument. This wasn't somebody giving an opinion on a podcast. This is a real class action lawsuit filed in federal court on behalf of thousands of children of Mexican and Latin American ancestry who were being forced into separate elementary schools in Orange County, California. And the trial court's decision was issued in 1946, and is reported, write this down, 64 Federal Supplement 544. It's the United States Courts of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit affirmed the result in 1947. The decision reported at 161 Federal Second 774. Okay? Now, again, I want you to understand that today, somebody type today they will say that this Mendez case is the blueprint that Black folk use, is the direct legal precursor of Brown versus Board of Education. But when you stop repeating that popular story, okay, because I've heard them say that, when you actually read the case and understand the context, that description falls apart. Mendez was unquestionably important. It helped Mexican-American children escape an inferior and humiliating school system. It exposed arbitrary racial discrimination masquerading as language instruction. But the plaintiffs didn't win because the federal courts declared that all racial segregation was unconstitutional. They won because California law hadn't authorized school districts to segregate Mexican children in the first place, okay? That distinction is at the heart of this case. The controversy began in 1944 in Soledad, when Soledad Vendoria, I'm a butcher the name, Veduari, he attempted to enroll, she tried to enroll her children and the children of her brother, Gonzalo Mendez. I want you to think about that. She's got her children and her brother's children, okay? And she wanted to put them into the local Westminster Elementary School. This is 1944. This is segregation. Somebody type Jim Crow in the chat room. Now, her kids were lighter skinned, okay? They have what is called a Basque surname, okay? The Basque surname, for you all who don't know, you all know where Spain is, right? And there's a little bit of land, I would say it abuts France, etc. That's the Basque area, okay? Basque, Okay, she had a Basque surname, not a Spanish, but Basque. But Mendez's children, okay, her brother, right? Sylvia and Gonzalo Jr. and Geronimo, these three kids, they were rejected from the same school that their cousins were going to. So her kids, Auntie tried to enroll us in school today, right? And they said, no, you can't bring them. Send them to the Mexican school. I want you to think about that. This is ugly, but it's revealing. These children were cousins. They came from the same extended family, yet one set of children was considered light enough, all right, and European looking enough to enter into the regular school, the white school. While the dark-skinned children, the black kids, the little black Mexican children, were said, no, you got to go to another school. These are cousins, same family. See, the school district wasn't simply evaluating language and ability. It was looking at appearance and complexion and ancestry and surname. In plain English, some of those children look close enough to be white to be accepted, and we're going to put you in with these little white kids. And the others looked too black. They were black, okay? They were dark, black, like Mexicans look when you go to Mexico, okay? Not all, but there's different kinds of Mexicans. So they were too black, all right? And the school districts, they tried to say, well, the Mexican children require separate instruction because they couldn't speak English well enough and to succeed in regular schools. But the evidence shows that the classification process was inconsistent because you had some light-skinned Latino children that didn't speak any English, but you let them in. And then you had the dark-skinned Mexican children that speak great English, but you let the light skin in, but you didn't let the dark skin in, and the dark ones speak better English in some cases. All right, so the district was sorting the children out according to how Mexican they looked, okay, not by their surnames and not by the how they sounded, okay, and then they tried to dress this racial sorting up as an education policy, and this wasn't a legitimate remedial language program. It was a color line with a schoolhouse wrapped around it. So anyway, Gonzalo and Felicitas and Miss Mendez, they initially tried to talk it out with the school authorities, you know, and they didn't begin by running the court. They asked the district to permit the kids in and the other other children who wanted to go, and the districts refused. And the Mendez family joined with the Estrada, the Gomez, the Palomino, and the Ramirez family to challenge 4 Orange County school districts. They literally filed a federal suit and class action so that these schools would allow these little black Mexican children to go into these white schools, okay? They sued Westminster, they sued Garden Grove, Santa Ana, El Medino, and they had a civil rights lawyer. His name was David Marcus. I believe he's a Jewish fellow out of Illinois, I'm not sure. But again, they expanded this to a federal class action. He represented 5,000 children of Mexican or Latin American ancestry. And the plaintiffs alleged that the districts had created a coordinated system of class discrimination and it violated the 14th Amendment. And the kids were being separated based on their skin color. Now you say it's because of the Mexican ancestry, but all these kids are Mexican. The only difference is these are dark and these are light. Okay. Now the districts answered by insisting that they weren't practicing racial segregation. And according to them, they weren't anti-Mexican, right? They weren't institutions designed they weren't trying to isolate the darker children, all right? They were supposedly educational programs created to teach English to promote Americanization and prepare Mexican children to enter regular school. But somehow all the dark kids end up at this school over here, and the light kids ended up over here with the white folks, all right? So again, this is what they were dealing with. Now, on on February 18th, 1946, United States District Judge Paul J. McCormick, who ruled on behalf of the plaintiffs, he said, this is racism. You all are wrong. We see what you're doing, okay? And the district court concluded that the school districts had denied Mexican-American children equal protection by separating them based on their ancestry and appearance and assumed language, okay? But he probably focused heavy on the appearance, meaning they look black. We know what you're doing. Because when I look at all these pictures of these kids, all the ones that got sent over here were black and the ones you kept were white. Now, Judge McCormick also rejected the idea that forced segregation was educationally beneficial. he concluded that Mexican-American children were more likely to learn English through meaningful interaction with English-speaking classmates. In other words, you telling me that if I put these Mexican kids over here with all these other Mexican kids, they're gonna learn English faster? That doesn't make sense. If I put them over here with these other kids who speak English, they'll learn English faster. That don't make sense to me, right? And so he prohibited the districts from continuing to, he prohibited the practice, okay? And California law at the time expressly authorized separate schools for certain groups, black and white per se, all right? But there was no separate group for Mexican kids, okay? There was separate groups from Native American children, children that identified as, okay, so under the existing statute, districts could segregate some Native American children and children who identified themselves as Chinese or Japanese or Mongolian. But California didn't pass a law authorizing districts to create separate schools for Mexican kids. So they didn't have a place for the Mexican kids. So if either you're going to the white school or not. So what you're doing is illegal because you're sending them to a Mexican school, and we haven't even made a rule. You shouldn't even have a Mexican school. Okay, so Mexican Americans were generally classified by law as white. That was just the fallback. You don't have we just gonna put them in with the white. They light enough, we'll put them there. Otherwise, we're gonna put them somewhere. We'll create a Mexican school, even though it's against the law, because we don't want these dark Mexicans here with our white kids. But what that meant was that the Orange County districts had created a system of segregation. They had created basically a default school for Mexicans, which was illegal. Okay, all right, they shouldn't have even done that in the first place. But again, the court didn't say no government may ever separate children by race. You understand? Because they had at the time children separated by race. So this is not like Brown versus the Board of Education. Board of Education said separate is inherently but unequal. Separate but equal is inherently unequal. But this case said, no, we can keep the separation, but because you don't have a school for Mexicans, you got to let these Mexican kids, black, light skin, whatever, you got to let them in the white school. That's what it said. So this is not the precursor to Brown versus Board of Education. And in that regard, the Mexican people won because they wanted their children to be around the white people. You understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense? All right, okay. Is that, you see how that's not Brown versus Board of Education? But see, the other thing is, the case also reflects a tension that appears repeatedly in Mexican-American civil rights history. Do you fight to dismantle the racial classification system? Or do you fight to prove that your group belongs inside the white group or the protected white category? Those are not the same struggles. That's not our struggle.